Aha, okay, figured it out. So I posted an announcement, hopefully you all saw it. Our Plan A schedule for the rest of the semester. Lots of things here. Hold on, I need to get some tissue. When you don't have clinics in your purse. Sorry about that. I updated study guide. And I know I handed one out, but I'm going to send this. Through, announcements as well. So where do I put that? Can I get out of my office without it? Sorry, I got a tiny little bit of a cold. Trying to knock out, it's almost better. I printed a brand new study guide and marked out everything that we weren't gonna use. Which isn't a ton, but we'll go over that in just a minute. But here, I'll post it on announcements later. When I get back to my office tomorrow. If you didn't see it this weekend, I sent this announcement for what we're gonna be doing. This, was actually 10:31 today, right? That's today. We're gonna finish World War II. No class on Wednesday, right? No class. Oh, they're there. Okay. It's been kind of that kind of morning. Yay, I didn't forget them. And I was so organized that I put them on the front table. There they are. I didn't print them on front and back though, so I apologize to all the trees of the world. They're 2 pages. So today we're gonna finish talking about World War II. There's one thing that I wanna mention about the Great Depression that I did not finish for some odd reason. So I'm just gonna add one thing when we get done here. Wednesday, we will not have class. Our test will be on Monday. Okay? So let me hand these study guides out so we can look at it just for a second before we jump into our class today.
Oh, it's 2 papers.
Yeah, I usually do front and back because
You said no class.
no class on Wednesday.
And then test Monday.
Test on Monday. All right. And I will do my very best to just post an announcement like early Wednesday morning to remind you, or late Tuesday evening, not to come to class. So I will take that time to try to take that time to put together a list of documentaries and films and things that you can find for free online. I made, anyone in here have like Amazon Prime movies? So I'll post some of those too, if you can, the stuff that if you have Prime, you can get for free. I'm not gonna put anything, and I might put some, like if it's a rental for like $3.99, if it sounds interesting to you. But it won't be, you won't have to pay for extra credit. I had some students get really upset, like, I don't wanna have to pay for extra credit, like, I'll put it as an option, but there will be free things too, right? So there's some good stuff out there. And really interesting stuff for World War I and World War II. And I can't pull it up, but a former colleague of mine, he retired. I'm very jealous. So he has all this fun time to do all this research, right? And do all the fun stuff. He sent me this little like 2-minute link, and I was going to try to pull it up in our class. It was talking about how Herbert Hoover has gotten such a bad rap. And remember we were talking about Hoover last week and all the Hoover bills? And it was talking about all of the humanitarian things that he did and the hundreds of thousands of lives that he saved just through his humanitarian aid. And I thought, well, that would be so nice to talk next to that Herbert, because he was facing an impossible task. And we tend to laud and praise Roosevelt when it comes right down to it. Roosevelt did not end the Great Depression. Great Depression just kind of, the war ended the Great Depression. Because people started, that economic system just kind of gets all propped back up. But maybe I'll find some good stuff on Herbert Hoover. So anyway, I'll find some things and post a list for you guys. And then if there's anything that you find that you want to watch that kind of correlates to what we've done this unit, if eugenics is interesting to you, if any of these things are, eugenics. In my Indiana history class, you were in Indiana history class, remember when we were talking about the State Street mental institution, they practiced eugenics. Indiana was one of the big eugenics places. Yeah. And there's a new documentary out on that mental institution that was on State Street. Do y'all know where State and Crescent and Anthony, like right around that, you know the place that I'm talking about, that it's real close to Northside Park. Big building, where it says, well, it has like State Boulevard or State. It's right like to the left as you are going north. Big mental institution that was there, and they practiced eugenics there. And there's a Fort Wayne PBS, I think, just did a documentary that I've been wanting to see. So that might be kind of interest. If eugenics is something that makes you we'd like to do some more in. So I'll see if I can find that one, because I definitely want to watch that too. But I digress. All right, Maury. Jamie. Happy Halloween. I dressed as a tired person. Really tired. My dad's doing a lot better, but they're requiring a lot of my time. Jack. Jaden. Yeah. Cannon. Brady. Noah. Colin. Caitlin. Zach. You are such a good class. Everybody's always here, focused, ready to roll. Okay. So study guide, if you will notice on here, I've done strike-throughs on some of the terms. Those are gonna be the terms that will not be on your test. I think you'll find very much like we did on the first unit exam. If you know one identification term, you're also studying for the other one. It's just a name and an event or a name and something else, right? So you'll be able to kind of link those together and think about telling the story and really, really, really focus on these identification terms. They're gonna be critical for success on your exam. When we get done, that splendid little war that I marked out on the second one, when we talk about imperialism, that's what they call the Spanish-American War. We didn't talk about that. We didn't get into the square deal policy. That was Roosevelt, which should have been other progressivism. But when we talk, I want to go in and talk about the New Deal in our third topic here, and I'm just going to briefly mention the Civilian Conservation Corps, and we'll use that as an example of a lot of the work programs that the government put together for relief. But I think that's going to be self-explanatory. That's not anything, I'm clicking over this. And we've talked about it all. A couple of things we're not going to talk about on World War II today because they really start trying to keep us in the United States since this is a U.S. history class, not a world history class. And okay, World War II. Pen, marker. I always think I've got everything out, and I don't. And I don't have one in here. Rats. There is 0 markers in this room. Okay, how am I gonna get through today? Axis powers. Any over there? No. Oh, I always have a bunch in my bag, and I have used them all. Maybe there's one in my purse, but that's like the great, I can't even find anything in there. It's huge and everything's just dumped in there. So the Axis powers for World War I, I'm not concerned if you know the Allies and the Triple Entente. But I do want you to know the Axis and the Allies here. The Axis powers are Germany, Italy, and Japan. And the Allied Axis, Germany, Italy, and Japan. Yes, sir.
Where is this dry erase marker?
Oh, you tempt me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so boards. One of my pet peeves is stuff that can't breathe.
Hand sanitizer.
Teachers in their board thing, you know what I mean?
Try hand sanitizer.
Try the what?
Hand sanitizer.
Oh, well, that scares me. I might ruin it and then they'll come after me and dock my paycheck. Germany, Italy, and Japan. And I don't want to focus too much on what's going on in world history, but we really need to understand what's going on with them bringing the United States into the war. And then for the Allies, the U.S., and for us, we're only going to talk about Great Britain. The Free French, I'm just going to mention them, the Soviet Union, Russia, and then they have their communist revolution, and then they're out. China, right? So these kind of weird things happen, and this doesn't hold stable. But we tend to not think of ourselves as being allies with Russia. But at the beginning of World War II, we were. But the two that I want us to really focus on are the U.S. and Great Britain, because this is where the United States is really going to have an impact, and it's going to tell the United States story. Okay, so Allied powers, Axis powers, I'm going to guard that. Japan. The Japanese had really not been super happy with the United States' involvement in the Pacific Ocean. Remember when we took on as territories the Philippines and a lot of those islands out in the Pacific? And I'm going to put a map on them, and it should trigger your memory. Handy dandy little overhead thingy here. I don't know what that's called, but
It doesn't trigger much.
pardon me. Okay, make this a little bit bigger so I can move it around. Okay, so there's Japan, right? Can we see it in the Atlantic Ocean? And to its west, China, Korea, Manchuria. Manchuria is a portion of China, Mongolia. Japan is expanding into that. Let me find the, you know how it has the little, that kind of neutral pink area. These are neutral areas, but Japan is getting ready to spread into that. Okay, so not to make you dizzy, here's Japan, and they are moving into Manchuria, but they are annoyed with, make this a little bit smaller so we can kind of see a big overview. Look how they're expanding that green area. They are interested in creating, and we've got this time period where Japan is trying to create this world empire. Hitler trying to create in Germany, starting and wanting to create this world empire. Italy's wanting to expand and create this world empire, right? All of this expansion and imperialism, when we talk about the United States in the late 1800s, that's more economic imperialism, right? They are literally taking over and annexing all of these regions. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here again. French Indochina, keep that in mind when we get ready to talk about Vietnam. Down here in the Dutch East Indies. See the Philippines right in the middle there? Philippines, see Guam to the right. Remember Spanish-American War, when the United States is taking interest in those areas. Japan is wanting to expand its influence, and it does. And they're angry with the United States for moving into the Pacific. There's Midway to the right. Remember Midway? Seward's expansion and his concept of economic imperialism. And then make note of over here, there's Pearl Harbor and the Hawaiian Islands. So you see Alaska in the far right corner, just to kind of get your bearings. Here's our Hawaiian Islands out in the Pacific Ocean. And then Alaska connects to Canada. Canada connects to the continental United States, right? So just right to the east here of the Hawaiian Islands, we have California. And I wish we could see California just for context. But Japan is beginning to extend her influence militarily and extending her control, and is creating what they call the Great East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. And I apologize, they did not make it easy for us. The Great East Asia Co-Prosperity. So, remember that the 14 points that Wilson had recommended in World War I? One of the most significant things that Wilson had recommended out of the 14 points was the creation of the League of Nations, which is the precursor to today's UN. So we now have this worldwide League of Nations, right? And what is their role? What is their job?
To mediate violence?
To mediate. Yeah. So Japan is expanding, right, and doing all of this takeover, especially when it moves into China, because in Manchuria, they're moving into territories that had their own identity and their own leadership. And so the League of Nations goes, no, Japan, you can't do that. No, right? Gives them a little slap on the hand. And what do you think Japan's response was? Did they go, oh, we're really sorry, President Woodrow Wilson's League of Nations. We're not going to do that. We'll leave these areas. They just left the League of Nations. Right? And the League of Nations kind of, okay, it's not whatever, right? So a week after Japan withdraws from the League of Nations, Hitler comes to power in Germany. This is all going on in 1933. Huge year. Hitler's Nazi Party promised to unite all Germans in the Great Third Reich.
I don't think this is on.
Is it on your terms list? I just have it as Nazi Germany on your identification terms. I don't have the Great Third Reich on there, but that's what he wants to call it. He is, and Hitler in Germany is trying to say that they are the heirs of like the great Roman Empire. And so he is wanting to expand and extend his political and military influence over the world. And while this is going on, in the 1920s, Italy's leader, you don't need to know him, but you've probably heard his name.
Mussolini.
Was wanting to expand Italy's reach and recreate a new Roman Empire. They are all going to unite. Anybody remember the big dictator here? Hirohito, Mussolini, Hitler, some of the worst human abuses and murderers in our history.
I wanted to ask you about that before I forget. Did I say it took the U.S. 40 years to respond to the Pearl Harbor bombing?
No, it did not take us 4 years. We almost immediately responded.
Well, it showed the dates of Hiroshima and Nagasaki as 45 and Pearl Harbor as 41.
Right, we entered the war in 41, right after Pearl Harbor. But in order to end the war, because the war kept going on and on and on and on and on, that's when the United States.
So that wasn't the bomb dates, that was the end of the war dates?
No, those were the bomb days.
So then the bomb for 4 years ago.
The bombs were, no, they were both in 45 at the end of the
I'm saying from them attacking us to us attacking them, it showed 4 years ago.
Well, we were at war, in 41, we are at war with them for 4 years. And it just seemed to go on and on and on forever.
And then we dropped.
And then we dropped the bomb,
Okay.
thinking that we've got to stop this one way.
I thought it happened with the bathroom.
Yeah. So Italy, the new, that new Roman Empire that Mussolini wants to recreate is fascist. So we have this, it's like, what was in the air? You know, when all this was going on, like, what are these guys doing? Everybody's just like, whoa, I'm going to take over here, and oh, I'm going to take over here. And so we have all this expansion going on. And the League of Nations keeps going, no, you can't do that. And they just do it, right? So we have this, they're jockeying for power worldwide in the 1930s. An attempt to, I don't know what, weird how some of these things just kind of, these errors just kind of like breed these things. So, U.S. history course, so this is what I want us to really focus on. What does the U.S. do in the light of all this? Because we have these expansions that are beginning in the 1930s, and these countries are taking and moving into other territories, and the United States has to figure out how it is going to react. President at the time, 1930s, what else is going on in the United States?
In the 1930s? The Great
Depression?
Yep.
Great
That's-
Depression. So Roosevelt is president, right? Roosevelt wants, Franklin Roosevelt, not Patty, Franklin Roosevelt wants to get involved in the war. He feels a great need to get involved, to stop what's going on. All these people dressed in their Halloween costumes. They're distracting me. Stop it. I have ADD. He wants to get involved in the war, and every time he wants to push America towards intervention, the Americans say, pull him back, right? They do not want to get involved in it. They have problems at home. They don't have jobs. People are in bread lines. Investors are throwing themselves off of buildings. There's crisis, economic crisis at home. We've got the Dust Bowl going out in the West, which is contributing to that even more. So lots of crises going on at home. And every time Roosevelt wants to get involved, Americans go, no, we want to stay here. So the U.S. very early on takes, and I think I used this term earlier, like they did in the beginning of the World War I, they take an isolationist stance. We want to isolate ourselves. We do not want to get involved in international affairs. Let's just, America, take care of America. Let's not get involved in the war. Truly, by the time we're done with World War II, I was looking at the stats this morning as I was just kind of going over notes and preparing for our class today. 400,000 American soldiers lose their lives, and there were 600,000 American casualties. Think of the impact of that. That's over 100,000 families, right? Affected by involvement. Americans didn't really want to get involved, at least not yet. Pearl Harbor is going to pull us in. You're going to go, hey, we've been bombed. We have to do something. We can't let that go by. But they're very, very hesitant to get involved. So Roman numeral number 4 here, what I have done, anything that is in parentheses is what is happening internationally and worldwide. And then all of the other things are what we do, right? And then how we react to those things in parentheses. That makes sense? So in 1935, Roosevelt's really wanting interaction. The American people don't. Congress decides to sort of kind of help, right? Because the U.S. sees it somewhat as the U.S. interest to have peace in the world. I mean, if the world's all blowing up, how long can we really sit here isolated? So the U.S. passes and Congress passes a couple of neutrality acts. And I'm going to mention two here, and then when we talk about cash and carry in B, that is also a neutrality act. So there are three that we're going to talk about. The first, in 1935, set an impartial embargo of arms to all belligerents. I'll know that term. If you're being belligerent, your parents ever say, you're just being belligerent. Do they? You're just being stubborn and mean and bad, right? Aggressive, angry. If you're belligerent, you're very aggressive. You're angry. You're rebellious. Not being stubborn in a quiet way. It's more of an aggressive, assertive type action. So a belligerent in this context means someone actively involved in war, or a nation actively involved in war. So a partial embargo, an embargo means prohibiting the sale of, right? So if we put a partial embargo on arms to all belligerents, we say that any nation who is involved in war, overtaking countries, right? We're not going to sell them arms. Oh, these costumes are fantastic. It's like I can't teach today because it doesn't like. Oh my God, okay. I'm so boring. I'm sorry. So a partial embargo on arms to all belligerents. And then in the second Neutrality Act, Congress put a ban on any loans or credits to any belligerents. Any loans or credits. So we are not going to support anyone who, Japan, you're taking over everything, right? Or any of these other countries who are extending and expanding into other areas. We're not going to sell you any arms or ammunition. We're not going to give you any loans so you can go buy any more. And we're not going to give you any credit, right? So are we really involved in war? No. Are we somehow trying to keep ourselves out of it? Yes. Because let's just say someone, Japan, had come to us and said, we want to take out a loan. We want some credit. Would you please sell us some naval ships? And we had sold Japan some. What might happen? What would we look like?
Ally.
An ally of Japan's, right? And then if we look like an ally of Japan's, any enemies of Japan's, we would suddenly be their enemy, right? So we have to keep ourselves neutrality. We want to stay neutral. We just want to stay out of it. We're putting a little bubble around ourselves. We're just not going to get involved in your argument over there. Y'all just go over there and have your argument over there. Japan over there, Europe over there. We're just going to stay here, right, in our little bubble. So almost immediately following the Neutrality Act, Hitler marches into the Rhineland.
This is still 1935.
Germany knows that the U.S. isn't going to get involved, right? The U.S. has just made it very clear, so there's no threat there. They march into the Rhineland. Now, what did the peace conference, Paris Peace Conference in 1919 say?
America could use the Rhine. Is that the trade or was that something like?
You're heading in the right direction. What happened with the Rhineland in the Paris Peace Conference after World War I? It's that territory between Germany and France.
What was for shipments for the U.S.
Are we thinking?
Was it demilitarized zone?
Yes, it was the demilitarized zone, right? Because Germany had this history of invading France. So they created this buffer zone, right? The Rhineland, it was the Rhine River. And so the territory on both sides of the Rhine River, they just said, this is going to be a demilitarized zone. No one, right? So like Germany, you cannot go in there. Germany has to demilitarize to begin with, right? They have to limit their army. They have to get rid of a lot of their tanks and all that kind of stuff. Certainly their undersea groups, their submarines. So they have to demilitarize them. After the Neutrality Acts, Hitler moves into the Rhineland. He just marches right on in because he knows the U.S. really doesn't want to get involved. The Neutrality Acts are really not, there's nothing wrong with the Neutrality Acts. I mean, the U.S. government's doing exactly, I think, what the U.S. government needs to do. But Hitler knows they're not going to be involved, and the U.S. is really the only country that anybody's fearing at this moment. And he's like, oh, okay, just going to march into the Rhineland and see what happens. What happened?
U.S. not happy.
U.S. not happy. But did the U.S. do anything?
No,
What did the League of Nations do?
nothing.
No. You can't do that. Sorry, you're so cute, right?
Mhm.
March right on in. Cash and carry, the United States passes another Neutrality Act in 1937 called the Cash and Carry Act. This declared that belligerents, so anyone at war, could buy supplies from the United States other than munitions.
New nations?
Pardon me?
You say new nations?
Munitions.
Oh,
So this would be guns and ammunition.
gotcha.
So generic supplies, right?
Med kits and MREs.
Yeah. I'm just a mess today. Really sorry. Almost not. They could buy supplies other than munitions, but this is where the cash and carry comes from. They had to pay cash up front. And they had to carry the goods on their own ships.
Hey, we still want your money, but we don't want to fight.
Right. Yeah, I mean, our economy is in the tank right now, right? So we want your money. We don't want to be at war. So this, if you think about, I don't have a map specifically for this, but let me pop one up if I can. And I can't. I'll just use this one. Are you thinking of the Cold War, the Berlin airlift?
I'm not sure.
I think-
He was doing the 40s, but like,
I think that was the Cold
Berlin
War.
airlift. I think you're thinking of the Berlin airlift, which is during the Cold War. It's right after the war.
okay.
When, because Germany is split between West Germany and East Germany, and Berlin is split between communism and the free world. We divide it all up. And so we try to, we'll talk about that. The airlift, is that what you're thinking of? Or
I think, yeah, I guess.
So what the United States is trying to do with the cash and carry, they are very well aware that this is for the most part going to only help Great Britain. Because geographically, when you go across the Atlantic Ocean, France is going to be overtaken by Germany in just a few minutes. Is this going to help Italy or Germany more or Great Britain? The British are going to be able to access those goods, right, easier and get them to their country. So the cash and carry and the whole plan throughout all of this, the United States is in spirit Great Britain's ally. If they had to take a side, they're not taking this side. They're taking this side, right? So they want to help Great Britain. Sure, we fought them in the American Revolution, and then we fought Great Britain in the War of 1812, but this is now 1930s, right? All of that bad blood is gone for the most part. Are we not, in essence, kind of British quite a few decades, centuries later, right? Because that's our heritage. So the U.S. is Great Britain's ally, and they want to help Great Britain. They are very sympathetic and empathetic to Great Britain. They want to support the British throughout everything that is going on in this conflict. The dates up here, the yellow, extent of Axis control is in early November 1942. They've taken over quite a bit, right? Germany, Italy, Japan, they've expanded into, they have almost all of Western Europe. Soviet Union still kind of split between the Allies and Great Britain. And Iceland, yay for Iceland, right? But Great Britain is kind of sitting over there very much alone, and the U.S. is very sympathetic. The cash and carry really is intended to help Great Britain, and then when we get to the Lend-Lease Act, again, definitely wanting to help the British. So again, the U.S. really is extending or continuing in this, we know the word quarantine, right? Kind of it's another isolationist type word. Keeping ourselves out of the conflict, trying to avoid getting drawn into the conflict, wanting to focus on things that are going on at home. And so when Hitler, again, continues to take advantage of this and begins to expand his control. This map doesn't really show it. But he's moving into this one. Late 1930s. Again, I don't want to focus too much on what's going on worldwide, but it's very important to the United States. He moves into I just lost it. I lost it, moving on from that. Germany moves into Austria and Hungary, annexed in 1938. Have y'all seen the movie The Sound of Music? That's the Austrian Anschluss, the takeover. You know, when they try to get Captain Von Trapp. I know, y'all. I mean, it's a real story, right? It's a true story. They try to get Captain Von Trapp, who is a loyal Austrian, to be part of the German army, and they escape over the mountains. That was the Austrian Anschluss that was taking place there, and a lot of Austrians were escaping if they possibly could, and those who couldn't were moved into the German army. Germany moves into this Czechoslovakia and the Sudetenland region, and the League of Nations is like, no, right? And it was the Sudetenland that really triggered what I want to talk about, and I wish I didn't have to go back and forth with this, it kind of makes me busy. I'm gonna put this out. Into what the world leaders call appeasement. What does it mean to appease somebody? Yeah, if you want to, if someone, I'll use my son for example. He has been badgering me for the last, this boy, for the last couple of weeks. There was this thing that we wanted to go to tonight, and I still said no. And he kept going, please, and every day I would be getting this text message going, oh, it's gonna be this. It was this. I'm not a big fan of teenagers going trick-or-treating. But they wanted to go. So anyway, it's like, no, right? And I just kept holding my line. If I were to have appeased him, I would have said, oh, okay, I'll let you go. Or, no, you can't go, but here's $500. Anyway, right? That's appeasement. Just kind of giving in and then saying, but don't ask me anymore, right? To appease someone. So Hitler marches into Austria. Hitler marches into the Sudetenland. The Sudetenland was one of those, in Czechoslovakia, it was one of those areas that world leaders, Germany just, like, it's violation of that Versailles, that Paris Peace Conference treaty again, that we didn't really get into. And so there was this event called the Munich Pact, where the leaders of France and Britain, Chamberlain and I can't remember the British guy, the French guy. It'll come to me in a minute. Go meet with Hitler in Munich, right? And it's not on your identification terms, but it goes along with that appeasement term. And they meet with Hitler and they say, Munich Pact. And they say, Adolf, we know you mean well, or we think you mean well. We want you to not go, we want you to stop invading all of these territories, please. And he goes, but I really, really want the Sudetenland. Well, no, Adolf, you really don't need the Sudetenland. No, I really, really, really want the Sudetenland. And they go, oh, you really, really want the Sudetenland? And he goes, yes, I really, really want it. They say, okay, we will let you have the Sudetenland and we won't do anything if you promise us that you will not expand into any other territories ever again.
And he's like, okay.
And Adolf goes, okay.
And then
Right?
and then he goes do it. It's so funny.
Yeah. So as you can see, invasion of Poland, right, happens after that. So I love this political cartoon.
And that was for Czechoslovakia, right?
Sudetenland's kind of like the outward border. So this says, see you gotta see the guy here. We know who this guy is right here. See the guy marching here? Like- He's pointing up, yeah. He is just like, right? He's so cocky. And then down here, these guys who are just bending over and letting him walk right all over them says the spineless leaders of democracy. This is appeasement, right? Oh, Hitler, please don't. You'll stop at the Sudetenland? Okay, we'll let you have the Sudetenland if you won't do anything else, right? Okay. Oh, sure. Okay. He played him like a fiddle, didn't he?
Mhm.
So when the Neville Chamberlain, the British leader, gets back to England after this, he was like, "We have achieved peace for all time." And then in 1939, Hitler invaded Poland. And everybody was like, but Adolf, you said that you were done, right? And then he begins on what becomes known as the Blitzkrieg, which means lightning warfare. Krieg means war, warfare. Blitz, lightning warfare. And this was the Blitzkrieg lightning when all of his aircraft, right? They start bombing over the Low Countries, Denmark. I'm gonna pop this up here because this is how he gets to France. Blitzkrieg, right? Here's Germany. He's bombing Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium. These countries that are known as the Low Countries, just blitzkrieg over them, and then down into France. This becomes known as Vichy France. It's an occupied territory. There's also like an underground, the Free French, there's a democratic type government that goes underground where they like secretly oppose Hitler and want to eventually take France back from him. And they support the U.S. and the Great Britain, but they're conquered in essence at that point. But still, they're working in the background. So the Blitzkrieg, that air power, that protecting those sea lanes, right? Wanting to take between. So lightning warfare. He gained those countries in 23 days. I mean, it was just like this bombardment, all the sound effects of war, right? Blowing them all up. I don't want to put that map back up yet. But think of Great Britain there, right? They're the only little green country sitting there, except for Iceland. Way off in the distance. But it's weird because, we have Iceland and Greenland up there, and Iceland is really not icy, it's green. Greenland is really not green, it's icy. But Iceland, ally, they just weren't doing a whole lot. But Great Britain is really, really in trouble. And so Roosevelt and Congress, Roosevelt really wanting to get involved in the war, Congress still really, really hesitant. In 41, Congress passes the Lend-Lease Act. And this really offers more, this is intended to support England, still maintaining neutrality. what by now in 41 has happened to England's economy? They don't have a whole lot of money. Right? Remember our cash and carry and things like that were intended to support Great Britain? Cash was really hard for them to come by. So the Lend-Lease Act says that the US government would lend lease or otherwise dispose of lend, lease, or otherwise dispose of, which might include like, oh, these are old guns and old tanks and old things that we were just gonna throw away. Right? We were just gonna throw this away. So, hey, we'll give it to you. So we'll either lend it to you, you can borrow it and give it back at the end of the war. You can lease it, rent it for a while, or we were just gonna throw this away, you could have it. So we would lease, lend, or otherwise dispose of arms and supplies to countries, and here's what's critical about this one. To countries whose defense was vital to the United States. Who would that be? And Roosevelt is really, really pushing for U.S. involvement in the war. And by the time we get to war and trying to, I love the little questions, in case you can't tell. I'll keep going up there. Where do I go? So here's this like King Kong kind of gorilla, right? And here's the shores of America. And this says culture, Kultur, German, right? And the German culture, the German world is coming. And it's got, see the little like German hat? Hat or whatever it has with the little, I don't know what it's called. But we look at it and we go, ooh, German, right? We can recognize that. And it says, destroy this mad group. And what's going on in Europe that we see over the Atlantic Ocean over here? What's happened to Europe?
Is it like the bombings?
They're just all destroyed, right? And if we don't do anything right now, it says, oh, I can't read that.
This is America, right, on the ground?
Say that again?
It says America, we're at his feet. You see that?
Under his feet. But these little words right here.
Wow.
What's in it? If we can read it.
If the war is not fought,
If this war is not fought to a finish in Europe, it will be on the soil of the United States, right? Let's get involved, and then when we are involved, let's enlist. So Roosevelt is really encouraging the U.S. to get involved in this, and they're talking, and we're talking about getting involved in this war in Europe, right? We've been focusing on Europe. We've been focusing on Germany. Have we said anything about Italy? Have we said anything about Japan? What pulls us into the war?
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor.
So what made Japan just randomly decide to go for the only one that they're fearing and that's completely civil? What was the intent behind the US?
For Japan to come into the U.S., for them to bomb the U.S.
What did they seek to gain?
Didn't we stop like supplying them with oil? So they got
Well,
mad.
yeah, we stopped trading with Japan. We've frozen all of the assets and all sorts of trade that's going on with Japan because they're belligerent, right? Italy, Japan, same thing with Germany, and really focusing on Hitler, which is what Americans are doing. Roosevelt's aware of what's going on with Japan, right? I mean, there's a lot of that stuff that's still going on. But all of these embargoes, the cash and carry, that's hurting the trade for the Japanese. And Japan is looking to expand as well. Just like Germany is expanding, the Great East Coast Prosperity Sphere, Great East Asia Coast Prosperity Sphere, and Italy, they're all expanding too. So none of that has died and gone away, right? So Japan, and the Atlantic Charter, I think maybe, I don't know if it's on your terms. If it is, just don't pay attention to it. But Roosevelt meets with Chamberlain, I will tell you what it is, the British leader, and they developed what they call the Atlantic Charter, and it's called, they made a statement, like these are the end goals that we want from the war. It's called the four freedoms: the freedom from want, the freedom from fear, the freedom from, what are the four freedoms? From want, from fear. Let me see if I can find them real fast. Hunger, I want to say.
Notice there was a famine one.
No, I'm wrong, it's not. Freedom of speech and expression, so a lot of like our Bill of Rights. Freedom of worship, freedom from want, freedom from fear. So this is what the Allies are fighting for. This is their end goal. This is our goal statement for the war. Great Britain and the United States. Speech and expression, worship, freedom from want, freedom from fear. Unofficial statement of war.
What was the last one?
Freedom of speech and expression, freedom of worship, freedom from want, meaning I don't need any, I need stuff, right? I need food, freedom from that, and freedom from fear. I'm just going to go put my nose in. So awkward. Okay, so the thing that pulls us into the war is the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Germany really preoccupied the U.S. quite a bit, and Roosevelt had done his very best to avoid a showdown with Japan. But just those, freezing their assets, blocking their trade, barring their shipments of iron, petroleum, you mentioned oil, we blocked that as well. So Japan is feeling the pinch, right? Because the United States is a huge economic market for everyone worldwide. So with everything else going on, Japan bombs Pearl Harbor on, does anyone know the date?
December 8th. December 8th, 1941. It's the 7th? God damn.
You were so close, Colin. I'll take December 8th.
Alright, but
December 7th, 1941.
that's when we went to war, December 8th, right?
Yeah, a day that will live in
Infamy.
infamy. Yes. Roosevelt gets on the radio, right? And we've been attacked, a day that will live in infamy, and declares war on Japan. And then shortly after that, I think Germany declared war on us 3 days later. So we're not going to get into the war too much, but I mentioned some of these statistics. On December 7th, 1941, when the attack on Pearl Harbor came, the U.S. had 1.6 million men in uniform, 1.6 million in our military. By 1945, we had more than 7 million. So we increased that military machine dramatically. The Navy had 3.9 million, the Army Air Corps at 2.3 million, the Marines had 600,000. And as I said, almost 400,000 Americans died and more than 600,000 casualties.
comparison of people hurt in Pearl Harbor compared to Hiroshima and Nagasaki is pretty amazing.
I know. The film, I think the one that I was planning on showing in class is, I think that might be on Amazon Prime. It might be one that you can rent.
Is it a movie?
It's a movie. It's and I don't know if it's free on Prime or if it's for rent on Prime. It's called Fat Man and Little Boy. It was about the Manhattan Project, which was the creation of the atomic bombs that we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So I will double check on that. I'll put that on the list if you guys want to watch it. It'll be kind of interesting, and I'll try to find some more.
I've got it right here. You can watch it for free.
You can find that for free. Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, I always try to find free stuff.
I don't know if anybody knows, there's one called if you type in hbtoday.cc, it starts out as a website, you add it to your home screen, and then when you click into it, click view full site, it has every single thing ever. TV shows, movies, like the newest stuff the day it releases. I watched that Hocus Pocus 2 the night it came out. Every
wow.
single thing was good.
Okay. That's good to know. So let me pop back to the Great Depression just in our last minute here, because I do want to have one of these relief acts mentioned on, and I left the Civilian Conservation Corps. So, and I don't know why we'll finish this on whatever, and then I never came back to it. So in this, because we talked about reform in the Glass-Steagall Banking Act and the Security Exchange Act, trying to reform the economic system, which doesn't seem to be working so great now. Maybe it will, solve it all. I don't know. But relief and especially recovery, especially relief, I really want to talk about. The government went on and created these programs that put Americans to work. Right, because a lot of Americans were out of work, large amount of unemployment. So the Civil Works Administration created jobs in the government for people to work in. The one that I'm putting on your identification terms is the Civilian Conservation Corps, and for a couple of reasons, it's the one that I really like the most. It was Roosevelt's baby. He really liked this one. And if you go to, this is where the government created jobs in parks and forests, like national forests and city parks and national parks and state parks. And you'll see a lot of zoos. They built a lot of zoos. So in a lot of those parks, they just created jobs to go and really to put into place conservation policies. And Roosevelt's trying to begin with all of the Dust Bowl problems, put in some conservation policies and land acts and things like that. But one of my favorite zoos in Tyler, Texas, was built by the CCC. And if you go to any parks, and national parks, state parks, even city parks, they often will have like a little sign, hold your thought just a second, at the entrance or something, and it will, a little plaque, and it'll say built by the CCC in 1930 whatever. So really an example of the jobs that the government created to get money in the pockets of Americans.
I get that the societal progression and the things that they did for work help, but if I lived in that time, to me, that would be my government and the people that are supposed to, be there for me, looking at me and saying, hey, we've got the money sitting here that could help all of you guys not be as down bad as you are, but you're going to work for it, you're going to do this. Like, we'll create jobs so we can pay you to live in a society where you're supposed to already be all right. Like, instead of just helping them out.
Instead of just giving them money, and they deliberated on that. They didn't want to just give money away. And honestly, most Americans didn't want to just sit there and take money. They wanted to work for it.
That's why I said I understand the work, but to me, that's like saying, hey, you guys are all broke and poor and war has fractured our community and everybody's hurt, but we're great up here. If you guys want a slice, go build that. I don't know, it's just a little weird.
Well, I think I would have, personally, I would have preferred to take a job, and to have a paycheck to help people out. Plus it helps government. And so that was a huge debate. And what ends up happening with the legacy, I've got 1 minute to do this. The Social Security Act, right, insurance for the old, it comes out of your paycheck, right? Your employer takes some out of your paycheck, and then the government takes some out on their side. And so you'll see that, FICA come on. And I don't know if y'all will ever see your Social Security money, because Congress keeps borrowing it, right? We're just gonna borrow it and not give it back. But it's supposed to help the aged and the disabled, and it was supposed to be temporary. All of this was supposed to be temporary, and it ends up not being temporary, right? And it creates what historians call the welfare state, where the government is now offering continual relief, and helping Americans in a different way than they had helped before. And that debate on, do we just give money away? Do we just give it to the American people, or do we create jobs, was one that they debated vigorously.
I don't think economically it could work that way. Like,
Just to give people
Yeah.
money forever, or just even,
well, no, like even just in that.
just in that time period,
Like,
yeah.
because in order, like, for money to even like work, like for
Yeah.
cash to work, you have to have like, some sort of like import, whether it's like goods from outside.
But we still do, I mean, during COVID, the stimulus checks, right? I mean, that was government handouts, government money to help Americans in a really tough time, although
You'll still have to pay for it.
it leads to inflation because we got all this money. Yeah, so it's
Whether
trying to
it's
solve one
tax-
part of the problem and you create another one.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we will not see each other on Wednesday. I will be thinking fondly of you all at 9:30. And our test will be on Monday. So same process. I will have your exams ready, and I'll have extra pens in case you run out of pen or ink, or you don't have a pen or you run out of ink. All you need to do is bring yourself in a pen or two. And you don't even have to have a pen, because I'll have some for you if you need them, right? Send me any questions if you have any. I will try to remember to post that study guide on our announcements, but we've got paper copies. All righty, happy Halloween. At least it's not foggy, but it's good. Oh, yeah. You'll remember this. Yeah, it's